right? So Genesis 3, 2 through 3. And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden. But God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. Okay. What's wrong here?
Touch it.
Yeah, so Eve changes the words as well. And so, gentlemen, we have to take some fault here because did we teach our wife properly in this? Somewhere along the line, because that command was only given to Adam, right? And so somewhere between Genesis 2 and 3, you have now the woman is the one speaking to the serpent. We don't know where Adam actually is here, right? He could be standing right next to her. He may not be. This text doesn't say. But we know what she says, and it's not the exact command that was given to Adam.
Well, I would like Andrew's. What was your take?
On what?
Where Adam was.
I have no idea.
I thought he was right there with her.
That's my assumption.
Yeah,
He says it right there.
People
right?
assume that. Well,
People assume
when she takes a bite of the fruit, she hands it to him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
It doesn't say even how much time goes by between those two events.
that's right. We have no idea. So that's why you won't find any answer to Genesis or creation, or ICR, or CMI is the other one.
But if
They won't say that.
Yeah.
But if you read that literally, you would assume that he was standing right there because she handed him the fruit right there, right?
But you do
But you
assume.
can't.
Again,
Yeah.
where you want to go only where Scripture goes and not beyond. So we assume it in a sanctified imagination. We want to think that may be, but we don't.
But you don't know.
But
But what
Yeah.
we do know is that Adam was responsible
Exactly.
to protect
Amen.
and guard his wife, and why was he letting her talk to a snake?
That's right.
Well,
And why didn't she know the word?
I take it even further. Why was the snake even in the garden doing that? Because he had dominion over the animals, and he could have stopped it from the
It
beginning.
doesn't say snake.
It
says
says serpent.
And everyone always assumes that we're talking about a snake.
Yeah. Well, apple's nowhere mentioned in the text.
I believe there's a description of this creature in Job, and it's no snake.
I haven't heard that yet, but we'll have to talk about that later.
So, could this be something like, okay, God told me that we're going to die if we eat this, so honey, don't even touch it.
Right,
Just
that's
don't
like
even
a comparison
touch
thing. Add more rules.
That's a good
And now we
point.
got legalism.
I like that.
Who knows?
Yeah, and then once she ate it, he was like, "There's no way you're doing something that I don't get to do."
You know what, somebody told me, he was like, well, let's see what happens to her if she dies, and then I'm going to try.
After all, it does look good.
So moving on, Genesis 3, 4, verses 4 and 5. But the serpent said to the woman, you will not surely die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. And so we see that temptation here again, back to Eve, and the serpent deceiving. Going on, Genesis 3, 6 through 7. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. And she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together, making themselves loincloths. And so here is where the fall actually happens. And now after this is God's redemptive plan through the rest of the Bible. This also, in Genesis, we just talked about the loincloths a moment ago. In Genesis, a little bit further, is the first prophecy now of Christ coming. This is Genesis 3:15. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your seed and hers. He will crush your head, and he will strike his heel. So the first of many laid out here. And this is as, if you go back and read Genesis 3, this is as God is cursing his creation. Starting with the serpent on down. Genesis is not a fable, as many pastors teach, and I hope that if you don't understand that already, I hope that's going to start to come across here in today's lecture here. Every book in the New Testament has a direct reference to the beginning of Genesis. That's pretty striking. In some of those examples, the creation account is talked about a lot, original sin, obviously is everywhere, Adam and Eve. One great example, 1 Corinthians 15:45. So it is written, the first man, Adam, became a living being, the last Adam, a life-giving spirit. The spiritual did not come first, but the natural, and after that the spiritual. The first man was of the dust of the earth, the second man is of heaven. How can Adam be figurative when you have a verse like this, where you have Adam and Jesus put in the exact same part here of Scripture, right? So what does that say about Jesus if Adam is figurative?
Jesus figured it.
That would be a logical conclusion, right?
Or salvation, or sin, or anything
Yeah.
at all.
And so that's the thing I'm really hoping to get across today, is that so much of the Bible breaks down, so much of what we rely upon with Jesus breaks down, gone, if we believe anything other than a 6-day, 6,000-year-old earth. So Jesus believed himself that Genesis was true. You know, if we're using, obviously the entire Bible is written by, it's his word, but if for people who want to use just the Gospels here, and the words that he spoke here on earth, Jesus himself quoted from Genesis more than every other book of the Bible combined.
How many times was that again?
You know, I don't have the times. It's probably in one of the Answer Genesis research articles. Yeah. Do you happen to know right off the top of your head? You've probably heard this
Andrew
a
knows,
billion
he knows
times.
Nope, no proof. I actually didn't, I hadn't heard
that either.
I hadn't heard that either.
I was like,
so
man, I wish when I was preaching through Genesis, didn't know that.
I'm actually thinking of, like, later on going to Logos and pulling up.
That's
Start
what
pulling it up,
Genesis
yeah.
should do.
Well, I know Answer Genesis, their website and CMI's website have really powerful search engines,
Yeah.
and you can find those things real quick.
I'll look it up.
So, Jesus verifies the Old Testament here, Matthew 5:17-19. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law of the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear on the smallest letter, at the least stroke of a pen will by any means disappear from the law, until everything is accomplished. Therefore, anyone who sets aside one of the least of these commands and teaches others accordingly will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever practices and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Going further, Jesus verifies many specifics of the Old Testament, including Abel being a real individual, Noah in a worldwide flood, Abraham, Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot and his wife, Isaac and Jacob, manna, the serpent, Jonah, Sheba, Daniel, and Isaiah. Jesus verifies Moses in John 5:45-47. This is one passage I love to use, and you'll see this in almost every creation talk out there. For if you believed Moses, you would believe me, for he wrote about me. But if you do not believe his writings, how will you believe my words? John 5:45-47. So how old is the earth? When we take a straightforward reading of the Bible, we have about a 6,000-year-old earth, and this is figured out by adding up the genealogies from Adam to Jesus as we see written in the Bible, and it's starting in Genesis 5. We know that there's about 2,000 years from Adam to Abraham, about 2,000 years from Abraham to Jesus, and about 2,000 from Jesus to now, we know from secular history. When we look at what an evolutionist believes, the universe in their mind is 13.5 billion years old or so. You'll see those figures vary a little bit. And the Earth is somewhere between 4.5 to 6 billion years old. Again, depending on which scientist you're talking to.
And the figures not only vary, but they keep getting older.
And they keep getting older as time goes on, that's right.
That's,
Well,
that's a large range from 4.5 to 6 million. Or
6
billion.
billion.
Well, I'm
But they
trying
know
to,
exactly what happened
Yeah.
at creation.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't tell you the weather for tomorrow, but
I'm just curious, at what point does millions and billions, at what point do you fathom that kind of time as a human being anyway? I mean, what is the difference between 1 billion and 4 billion?
Well, that's what makes them so much more brilliant than Harold Camping. If they predict that the universe is going to, if the Earth is going to be destroyed in 3 billion years, no one's going to be able to check that.
You're just smarter, huh?
That's why some people were predicting at a certain time the world was going to end, and then realized about that, like, well, let's just predict it when we're going to be dead, and like, we'll.
Maybe. One of the issues we see with the years is that as science is used to see how much more complex our cells were and different organisms are than we ever thought before, the only answer evolutionists have is by tacking more time on.
Right.
And so that's where you see time has just exploded.
This is what we talked about. So when I was a teenager, universally, Omni magazine, Discover magazine, 420 million years, the universe.
Oh, really?
Now, it's almost 6.
Yeah, and you'll see it continuing to increase. I mean, the research going on right now into the genome and into just cell biology is incredible. And when you see that walking laminin protein, if you guys haven't seen that video yet, CMI has close your ears, has a groundbreaking video that's out right now on demolishing evolution, and it's the best video that is out there.
What's it called?
If I'll find it during the break. I have it at home. I've watched it. They go through 6 different segments, about 15 minutes apiece. I haven't seen a better video than this right now, and they're going to be doing. Scott Gillis told me this about 2 months ago. They're going to be coming out in an evangelism pack sometime next year once they recoup some money on this video. So you'll be able to give these away for $1 a piece. Well, it's going to shatter everything. So on here they have they have this protein that is. They got laminin protein. They have this protein as well that literally is walking ATP molecules through a cell. It looks like Santa Claus in his bag, walking through a cell. It's dropping off ATP where it needs to go.
Okay.
It is unbelievable.
And it's so simple for you to understand by watching it because it's so visual. Even his father, who is not saved yet, is just going, you can see everything starts circling in his brain.
For my father,
Yes,
who watched
for
it
his
with
kids.
us,
So
yeah.
it's really a great tool for questions for those that are just questioning God.
Yeah. So as we see these things, as we learn more and see how much more complex they are, these numbers are going to skyrocket in our lifetimes. They have to, because the only answer they ever have is just tacking more time onto things,
Or making stuff up.
or just make stuff up. Yeah.
What's the difference? It shows that our God isn't changed, and that's what we want to cling to, is something that is constant, which is another evangelism tool for us, just to speak that.
That's right.
That's like what some of you guys saw last night with the one guy. Your problem is you take the Bible literal and you need to see it as allegory. So I should trust in something that continues to change. Yes! So I should trust something that continues to change and not trust something that never needed to change. That's what you're saying? Yes! Okay.
Remember that now.
So if your paycheck changes from week to week, how are you ever going to be able to
Well, that
plan
could be
for
good
anything?
if it goes up.
Yeah, exactly. Mercy.
So when we talk about compromise, many Christians compromise, and I was guilty of this, again, at one time. I didn't go as far as what you see in here. I was still trying to figure out how to amalgamate the two. But there's a lot of different ways out there that people have tried to do this. And so, when you're a professing Christian and you believe in evolution because science rules you, you now have to figure out a way to amalgamate those two together, to mix them together. And thus, they have to try to find ways to add millions to billions of years into the Bible to get those to mix. What's interesting, though, is that when we go from Adam to now, those genealogies give us 6,000 years. Unless you just flat out say the Bible is wrong in its genealogies, that's pretty much locked in stone, right? So the only way you can get millions to billions of years into the Bible is you have to change the time of the days of creation, or you have to fit the millions to billions of years in, quote unquote, before the days of creation.
But what about the day that man was made and the seventh day they rested, but then you have to add that time in there too, right? I mean, like if you're going to change the age, the length of a day, then those days have to change too, and then,
Or there's two separate creations like the gap theory.
Yeah,
Well,
those are creations.
Yeah, there's a bigger issue with that, and that is the misinterpretation of what's the meaning of 1,000 days a day, 1,000 years a day.
Oh, 2 Peter 3:8. Yeah, well, that's a whole other issue.
Yeah.
Well, but that's the point is that professing Christians over the years have tried to find ways to fit the missing millions to billions of years in the Bible. So they're grasping at whatever straws they can, trying to misinterpret whatever words they can misinterpret to do so.
I was like, why? So you can fit in with the world? I mean, that's why you're
Because
here.
they're unwilling to give up the
acceptance of the world.
intelligence of science.
Well, but
You
the
don't
thing
wanna-
is, you sent us to secular schools that taught us science, the same as math, the same as history. And so you're sitting with teachers who are telling you this is science, and you have very weak parents who don't have a clue about the Bible to start with, or you're going, to Sunday school learning fables, so it's very easy to switch.
We've been saturated with this stuff, man, from the time we get into school until the time we get out. And there's nothing that we're being taught to buffer or to counter that. We're just letting our schools just indoctrinate our kids. And we don't counter it at all.
It's basically what he was saying earlier, because people are teaching the Bible as allegory not to be taken literal, and science, which is allegory, to be taken as literal.
Taken literal. That's right.
And that's the issue.
Yeah. So two of the main things we're going to cover here is day age theory and gap theory, and then we'll cover some of the smaller things out there. So we talk about day age theory. This is still the most common one that is used, and what people do is they take the word yom, and they try to translate it differently, because this word can be translated as either day or era depending on the context. So the words around the word yom. We know that the word yom is used 2,301 times in the Old Testament. What's that?
But that one time.
Yeah, but just a few times. The only place it's actually questioned in terms of what the